Hi everyone, Tom was here, and happy draft day to you and yours. I figured I'd get this out before it was too late to do so. This is my 8th annual, 8 years I've been doing this, wishful thinking mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have not listened to me one time. Well, I guess it's not necessarily true. There's a couple times we did match on the first round pick, but the writing was on the wall. But in this circumstance, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in a situation, and really a bed they made themselves. And it starts with the quarterback position. When the Steelers brought in both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, it looked like a genius move. It was the cheapest quarterback room in the NFL, and the idea was that one of them would eventually take over the helm. Did they fumble the ball with that? I think they did with Fields. I think they thought they could get him in for a bargain. And, to be fair, they weren't really looking to give him a shot other than being a true kind of bridge quarterback. They didn't have the full confidence to give him the keys to the castle. Russell Wilson, we've heard the rumors, the tea leaves, the things of, his disagreements with Arthur Smith, things he should have done, things he shouldn't have done, and they had every ability to get Russell Wilson back if they wanted him. And they didn't. They re-signed Mason Rudolph, which is interesting, both, I would say, more on Mason Rudolph's part than anything, because every opportunity they have shown, because at the moment, he's in the pole position yet again. And whenever Mason Rudolph's in the pole position, you can rest assured that they're going to maybe draft someone or sign someone or both. And that's certainly the case this year. There's Aaron Rodgers. He's still out there in the wind. I don't know if the Steelers expected it to go on this long, but now it's officially draft day. He is still yet to sign with the team. If you're not all in at this point, you're not showing up to OTAs, you're not all in, then you're out, in my personal opinion. And I have to go based on the wishful thinking mock draft based on how the current setup of the team is. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not on this team and may not be on this team. Does that mean a Kirk Cousins trade? Who knows? Does that mean, them bringing in somebody like a Carson Wentz or Ryan Tannehill, who's like a foot from, retirement? Who knows? We simply don't know what they're going to do. And I'll be honest, I've been watching a lot of draft coverage, and I don't think the experts know. Not just with the Steelers. Other than the fact that there's guarantees, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen this evening in the draft. Normally, there's kind of writing on the wall. You kind of know how these picks are going to go. This draft, a lot of talent, but I don't know if anybody knows exactly what's going to happen. So, with that all being said, it is time for the Pittsburgh Steelers 8th annual wishful thinking mock draft for the 2025 draft on Tom Was Here.
Hey, Shooter McGavin here, Chris McDonald. I'm watching Tom Was Here, and Tom is here, so check it out.
I have my list here. I have the picks. And in order to fulfill the Steelers' needs, and once again, if you're not familiar, if this is your first time watching a wishful thinking mock draft, the idea I always presented is, what if the draft fell the Steelers' way? What if everything kind of worked out the way, really I say the way it should, or the way I feel it should. It's really the way I feel it should. I don't know if the Steelers think that way. Nobody knows what the Steelers think. But based on their needs and based on what they're looking to have done, here's the players I would like to see them draft. Whether that ends up being boom or bust, I've looked back at some of my old drafts. I've made some I've made some choices, but you know what? If you look at the Steelers' last 10 drafts, they made some questionable choices as well. In fact, the vast majority of them not great, especially in the first round. This is not the golden era of Steelers drafting by any stretch. There's probably one Hall of Famer in those last 10, and that's Watt. Beyond that, look at some of them. Not great. So, Like I said, I'm throwing darts at a board. I think the Steelers, I'll be honest, I think the entire league's throwing darts at a board. Is Cam Ward the best player? Is he worth being taken number 1 overall? Because last year, he would have been like, what is it, they say, like the 7th quarterback taken or something like that. No one knows. No one knows. But in order to address all the Steelers' needs, pick 21 of the first round. There's been a trade. There has been a trade. The Pittsburgh Steelers have traded down with the Buffalo Bills. They have the Bills. They have given away the 30th pick to the Steelers and the 62nd pick. They have 2 second-round picks. This is the later of the 2 second-round picks. The Steelers have given away pick 21 and pick 123, which is in the 4th round. Now, I did a mock draft on a simulator where I had the Steelers trading that same scenario, 21 to 30, but they traded a 5th round pick. Do I think that's realistic to get 30 and 62 back? I don't know. Yeah, you drop 9 spots in the 1st round, but you still have a 1st round pick. A 4th round seemed much more palatable to me. So with that pick, that's pick 30. It's from Buffalo in round 1. The Pittsburgh Steelers select Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan. I know what you're thinking. You're like, you just griped in the intro about QB and all the uncertainty at the QB position and what's their top need. QB, I do think, is their top need. But I also remember seeing a playoff game where they were completely dusted for 299 yards on the ground because they haven't had a true plugger, a run stuffer, since Casey Hampton. Javon Hargrave was okay, but he was more, he wasn't the big body size. I need a big body. I've been trying to get them to get a big body for years on that line. And Kenneth Grant is that, but Kenneth Grant has also shown the ability to rush the passer, to actually, there's even a play where he has an interception on a tip. I like guys like that, guys that can find the ball as a DT, as someone on the D line that can find the ball in space. Shows you're aware out there. Now, I have heard knocks that, he's taken some plays off. I've not seen that based on everything I've looked into. I think that's an unfair knock. I think that's the misinformation season that you get into draft. I haven't heard anything medical about Kenneth Grant like I have with Harmon. Harmon has a medical, at least based on what I saw. Now, is that people blowing smoke to attempt to get him to their team? Perhaps. Also, Harmon to me is more of a Stephon Tuitt, whereas Kenneth Grant is more Casey Hampton. And I want a Casey Hampton. In fact, I need a Casey Hampton. I haven't needed a Casey Hampton since we've had Casey Hampton. There's nobody that can stuff that run, and it shows. They're getting gashed. They're getting gashed completely by almost every running back running directly up the middle. They can't stop it. Almost every run up the middle against the Steelers goes into the secondary. Feel free to look it up. It's not great. So Kenneth Grant is the pick, with other needs on the table. If you're talking quarterbacks, there's been a lot of smoke. There's been a lot of smoke the last couple days, particularly quarterbacks. I've seen less and less Jackson Dart, which a lot of people at one point thought 21 he'd be there. And now he might have passed Shador based on these recent tea leaves. And Shador may be there. But in most recent mock drafts, I've seen the Steelers taking Jalen Milroe. I have seen them taking Jalen Milroe in the 1st round, and, I'd say any quarterback in this draft has a level of concern. That level decreases as the rounds go on. So the risk involved in the Steelers taking a 1st round pick on a Jackson Dart, on a Jalen Milroe, on a Shador Sanders for that matter, the risk is high. And there, Kenny Pickett, anyone. If you move down or you end up taking a quarterback in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds, that risk is mitigated. Now, arguably, or maybe, you're not getting as good of a player, and that's fair. But, in my circumstance, I personally think the Steelers could and should draft a quarterback in those later rounds because I have great concern of them taking any 1st round quarterback personally, even though they do need a quarterback badly. So, with that being said, we have a second round pick again because of the Buffalo trade. It's pick 62, Buffalo's second round selection, and the Pittsburgh Steelers select Trayvon Henderson, running back, Ohio State. Similar to Kenneth Grant and, big program guys. Tomlin loves a big program guy. I'm not saying he hasn't grabbed people like Deontay Johnson that played at Toledo, but especially more recently and as of late, usually your top picks are coming from bigger size programs. Your Michigans, your Ohio States, your Alabamas, your Georgias, they do that sort of thing. They want those guys. I'm not saying that's constantly the case, but they have brought in Trayvon Henderson for an official visit, and I wouldn't be shocked if they went DT and running back in respective rounds, because I've mentioned in several mock drafts, if you watch them, that the Pittsburgh Steelers brought in nine running backs as part of their top 30 visits. But what I didn't mention in any of those is they brought in eight defensive linemen in those official visits as well. That's 17 of your 30 picks tied into two positions. My guess is they're taking both of them, and fairly early. So Trayvon Henderson here, very productive at Ohio State. My concern is there's several concerns when it comes to him. One is medical. The Steelers haven't shied away from medical guys. They haven't, Peyton Wilson had a medical. Troy Fontenot had a medical. As you can see, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Peyton Wilson played pretty much healthy the whole year, and Troy Fontenot, the injury concerns, he didn't play at all, hardly that rookie year. So you take the good with the bad. Is that a concern with a running back who already have limited shelf life? Sure, it's a concern. But you know what? Highly productive guy. I wouldn't be shocked if his partner, Judkins, was the pick here as well, but they didn't bring in Judkins for an official visit. They brought Henderson in, and that's why I say Henderson has the edge here if it's something where they are able to get into the second round, because I don't think he lasts into the third. So running back addressed, they needed to. Defensive tackle addressed, they needed to. So now we have our original third round pick, and I honestly don't think they're going to sit there. I could be wrong. What do I know? But from 21 to 83 without picking again, I think they do want 2 day 2 selections. I would hope it would be in the second. It may be in the third. There's also the looming George Pickens trade that, he's unfollowed the Steelers on Instagram, and there's all this drama and all this nonsense. Look, the fact is that you can say what you want about Pickens. Pickens has unfollowed the Steelers before. He did it when he had a 1-yard game at Tennessee. He did all this, this is antics that this dude does. But he's also in a contract year. And if you're not signing him, maybe you do trade him for some optimum value. The problem is that if he goes away in free agency, you're most likely getting a third comp. So you have to, in my opinion, if you're getting a second, a first, completely different story. Because obviously that's a guy that, that's something where you can use it. The problem is you're hamstrung and you need to use it on a wide receiver. Because if you watch any of the Steelers games last year, as soon as George Pickens got hurt, their entire offense imploded because they had no depth at wide receiver. And Calvin Austin is not a 1. And Van Jefferson was not a 1. And they currently don't have a 1 outside of DK on the roster. So if they get rid of George Pickens and DK's hurt, or imagine if you had DK and Pickens, that only helps Pickens. Pickens, if he stays on this team, I have full confidence that Pickens will have the best year of his career. That's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. Unless he gets hurt, because DK is the one that's going to draw the 2s. That was Pickens before. That means Pickens single coverage. And if you throw it up to Pickens single coverage, he usually will come down with it. Problem is, Steelers aren't going to pay him, and then he'll sign for big money. But that means they'll get a third round comp. The problem is that hamstrings them into having to draft a receiver early. So even if they get a pick back, that just means they're taking a receiver. Which, don't get me wrong, there's nice receivers in this draft too. So there's a lot of looming questions with this draft and a lot of places it can go. And it's going to be very interesting. But in my opinion, Kenneth Grant, first pick, Trayvon Henderson if they get in the second pick, and that takes me to 83 overall, the third round, and the Pittsburgh Steelers tech, and this might be the most wishful thinking of my wishful thinking mock draft because it is Jalen Milroe, the quarterback from Alabama. Now, Milroe mocks have been all over the place. This is not unprecedented to see Milroe in the third. I have seen plenty of mocks where he was. I have also seen plenty of mocks of him in the second. Most recently, I have seen plenty of mocks of him in the first, which, you know, it wasn't just my kid who like pounds the table for Milroe. He gave me the old Raiders GM thing. He's like, if you don't take Milroe, I'm, you know, getting a new family and all this nonsense. I'll tell you what I like about Milroe. One, he played against elite competition in the SEC. So big time program. He has maybe the best deep ball in the class. That's another one as well. He has 4.3 speed. The problem is the short, the intermediate game, the inaccuracy, the decision making, all those things do have to be worked on. He is a project quarterback after all. But I see no reason why that project couldn't turn into a Jalen Hurts. I see no reason why that project couldn't turn into Jalen Hurts. And that's the ceiling, is Jalen Hurts. And look, Jalen Hurts, the Eagles got crucified when they took him in the second round. I remember us laughing at him. Like, Eagles, what are they thinking? Well, they're laughing all the way to the bank now with a shiny new trophy in their case. So, you know, hindsight is what it is, and clearly, you know, it worked out for them. I think Jalen Milroe, especially, you know, if they sign Rodgers, or even if it's just Rudolph, I like the risk factor at a third for Milroe, or even a second for Milroe in this regard, but not a first. It just scares me. You know, I don't need another bust first round pick. It will shy away from them taking a quarterback next year. You know, they're not going to go back to back QBs, first round QBs. That's just not going to happen. So if you're taking a first round quarterback this year, they're not going to take it next year, and who knows what this year is going to bring. Now, of course, next year is supposedly a better quarterback crop, but we'll see. But Jalen Milroe is the pick here. You know, an 83 would be a steal. Nice little steal. So, round 4, pick 123, as mentioned in the Buffalo trade, was traded. And that brings us to 156. That is our original pick. The Pittsburgh Steelers selected Jalen Reed, safety, Penn State. Another big-time program guy, another official visit guy. And, you know, you could say, wow, man, they have so many safeties. And they do. They have a ton of safeties. They have a ton of tight ends. They have a ton of middle linebackers. But at this point, they take best available. And you can't, it doesn't hurt to have additional safety depth. Also, he has some freak immeasurables. You know, it was a 6'1", 223 guys running, you know, pretty fast 40. So, you know, he has that potential. Obviously, some questionable decision making, the reason why he's there in the 5th. But he's one of those like freak athlete guys that can somehow come into the 5th and eventually take over a starting safety spot. Sure. You know, even though we do have a nice depth at safety, it's not like we have any like grade A world beater guy, like nobody he can't beat out of a job on some of those backups, especially. So, you know, Jaden Reed, the pick here, the safety of Penn State, that's kind of a best available situation. It could easily be corner, it could easily be several other needs, but I do address those later. So, we are in round 6. We are pick 185, and the Pittsburgh Steelers select Caleb Rogers, tackle, Texas Tech. Caleb Rogers here, you know, they've taken, I saw mock drafts, stupid mock drafts, where the Pittsburgh Steelers were selecting tackle in the first round. Do these supposed paid experts not realize that the Pittsburgh Steelers have drafted tackle in the first round the last 2 years? And yeah, You can say many things about Broderick Jones, and you can say many things about Troy Fontenot, but they're not doing what Detroit did a few years back and taking 3 first-round receivers and like the top 10 picks 3 years in a row. That would be stupid, especially a tackle position. Not saying they don't have tackle depth issues, because they do. Because beyond Broderick Jones and beyond Troy Fontenot, there's nobody else. They don't have a kind of locked-in swing tackle. So this guy would be a guy you put in development for that. He started a ton of games for Texas Tech. I think he started I think it was like 55 games, something like that for Texas Tech. So you have a guy that is the ability to take over in a pinch. And the Steelers can also find these guys. They're pretty good at finding offensive line late that can come in and not be like world beaters, not be like Hall of Famers or starters even, but man, whenever somebody gets injured, they come in and they just on a pinch, they can just come in and just act like the guy never left. That is beneficial. So I think Caleb Rogers could be that guy, but any tackle could be that guy, especially in the 6th round. 6th round, 7th round, these are dart throws to say the least. These are, take my coin, kiss it, throw it in the well, and hope for the best. So I like Caleb Rogers here because of a lot of experience and potential to be that guy. But like I said, it could be many tackles here, and they can go tackle earlier because they do have tackle depth issues. The final round, that is pick 7 of round 7. That is 229 overall. The Steelers take Desmond Watson, defensive tackle, Florida. If you're not familiar with Desmond Watson, he is the largest athlete, the heaviest athlete ever to be in the draft. He weighed in, I think at his pro day or at the combine, I can't remember which, at 454 pounds. Obviously, he's not going to play at that weight. He won't last long. They will have to, kind of streamline him a little bit. And when I say streamline, I mean if he can play roughly at the 400-pound mark, I wouldn't mind. Because once again, the Steelers get gashed up the middle, and their depth issues on the D-line are bad. And they haven't had pluggers in a long time. Now, the concern with having a big body there, just because they're a big body, brings up Dan McCullers' mind. That name pops up in my mind, and it's like, well, he was a big body. The problem is that he was a big body that wasn't able to not get easily moved. For somebody that was like 6'9", like 360 pounds or something, man, they would open him like a door. Like it was just, they'd move him off the side, no problem. I don't think you're moving Desmond Watson off the side with no problem. And his job was simply be to eat the runner, especially when they go up the middle. He's not going to be a 3-down guy, but in a 7th round pick, you don't need him to be a 3-down guy. You need him to eat rushers alive. And he has the ability to do that. And with the 7th round pick, that's ideally what you want, is just some guy to fill a role and be a player. So as long as that guy exists, as long as he's there, that's fine. Because that is a guy that is projected late. He's projected later in the thing, probably because he's giant, probably because he will not play 3 downs, probably because they don't think they can get his weight off, and he might not last too long in this league. But for me personally, I take a flyer on him. I take a flyer because, very simply, Steelers need to be able to stop the run up the middle, and they need pluggers, and they haven't had pluggers in a long time. They've had Band-Aids. They've had guys that, kind of were more, mixed, like more like a Stephon Tuitt, more like a Larry O, more like people like that, that, were not your Vita Veas of the world, not your Jordan Davises of the world. Now, yes, I just mentioned Vita Vea and Jordan Davis or Jalen Carter for that matter. Those are all 1st-round pick guys. I just need a big body in there to eat. That's what I need. And I think the Steelers need to do it because they've avoided this for a long time, and it shows in their run stopping abilities. When, every runner's getting into the secondary, no matter who the runner is. Not even like great runners, not even like Derrick Henry. It's just like random guys. They're just like Kenneth Gainwell ate the Steelers for lunch in that Eagles game. Now, yeah, a lot of his things were passes out of the backfield, but still, they're not stopping anybody at the rush. So yeah, if they're going to double dip on a position, I wouldn't mind it being defensive line. And I wouldn't mind it being DT for that matter, people that can eat your rusher in the middle. So, I did rush through these versus in previous years, but that is my wishful thinking mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Could they take quarterback tonight? Absolutely. Absolutely they could. And yes, it is a deeper draft for defensive line help. It's not like they can't address that later, because they certainly could. My concern about taking a quarterback of the future, my concern about being, say, Shador or Jackson Dart or almost everybody, and that'd be even if Cam Ward fell there, to be honest with you. It'd be the same concerns. It's not like he's like far and away like the grade A guy. It's, yeah, I would have the same concerns. It's like, okay, I don't mind getting quarterback depth. It'll actually give you the same quarterback in the room for more than one season, which they haven't had in the last two. But is this the right guy? Is this the guy to take over the job? Is Shador? A lot of the big smoke things coming out about he's the worst and he has the worst interview and he has the worst attitude. Well, yeah, of course he does. Have you seen his dad? Have you ever seen that dude? He's cocky. He's a blowhard. He's arrogant. What is his son seen from his father? He's seen him be cocky, blowhard, arrogant, Hall of Famer, post-career as a broadcaster. Now he's one of the highest paid coaches in college. And you're shocked that he's running that same blueprint? You're shocked by this? Of course he is. He sees no downside to being this way. Plus, he's a quarterback, no less. Outside, it's my team. I'm the man. Blah, blah, blah. I don't need to learn from nobody. Yeah, it's the same thing. Most offensive players are, especially like wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. They're me. This is not shocking. Yeah, of course, it's like a job interview. You're going to sit there and you're going to say all the right things. Jackson Dart, I'm sure Cam Ward, I'm sure all these people say all the right things in this thing. And, Sanders don't know any different. He knows what his dad is. And what his dad is cocky. And he can, play that same game because he is too. You don't know, a lot of people, I'm sure Kenny Pickett said all the right things, but when push came to shove, when he faced a little adversity, he took his ball and went home. He did the same thing. So, is it better? Is it better or worse? I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what Rodgers is going to do, whether he's going to be there or not. I don't know what the Steelers' mindset is, or whether they're taking QB or just waiting till next year when they have all those picks. But it'll be a very interesting evening that will answer a ton of questions. Not just about the Steelers, but about this entire draft, and whether it was all smoke. Remember, in the Kenny Pickett draft, I read many mock drafts that had Malik Willis going high, super high. He was going to go 9 overall. Desmond Ridder was going to go in the first round. All these players were going to go in the first round. What happened? Malik Willis didn't get drafted until third. Desmond Ridder didn't get drafted until third. There was only one quarterback taken that first, and it was Kenny Pickett, and ultimately a mistake. This could be a very similar draft, although some of the names were more highly talented. Your Darts of the world, your Shador Sanders especially. How can it be that a guy in Shador who's over-under draft position 2 days ago was 8.2, and now it's 21 and a half? 21, of course, being the Steelers pick. That's very interesting. So, let me know your thoughts on the NFL draft, on my mock draft. Do you like it? Do you hate it? You guys didn't play ball this time around. I was expecting far more hate and comments and stuff like that. Nobody commented. Maybe I was too late maybe I should have did more. But I always like reading your comments, especially when you hated it. Now, some of you disliked the one, especially the first one. But no comments to say why you disliked it. Back up your back up your hate. You can dislike me, you can dislike my voice, you can dislike my video, you can dislike my picks, you can dislike the Steelers, you can dislike a lot of things. Just tell me why. Tell me why, and tell me why you like or hate this draft. But final breakdown, first round, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, Michigan. Via trade, second round, Trayvon Henderson, running back, Ohio State. Third round, Jalen Milroe, quarterback, Alabama. A little bit wishful. He probably will go higher. Traded away fourth round. Fifth round, Jalen Reed, safety, Penn State. Sixth round, Caleb Rogers, swing tackle or tackle, Texas Tech. And last pick in the draft, 229 overall, Desmond Watson, defensive tackle from Florida. And guys, thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, make sure to like, share, subscribe. Like to support me on Patreon like John Bailey, like Brett Persing, like Fan, you can do so. Link is in the description below. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, a TomWasHere t-shirt, you can do so at Spreadshirt, as well as links to my eBay store, Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, Arena Club. The links are in the description below. But when it comes to live draft reaction, which will be this evening when the Steelers go on the clock, or the draft follow-up, or the next video in general, we will see you soon. But until then, bye everyone.